In this video, I want to talk to you about the procedures and best practices to follow in an integrative negotiation. In a prior video, I talked to you about what is an integrative negotiation, the idea that it's not a fixed pie, it's not mutually exclusive, at least not as you would expect it to be. That is, the interest at stake can be expanded. The parties can create more value in the negotiation than otherwise existed if they cooperate. So the essence of the integrative negotiation is it requires some level of cooperation so that each party can focus on the unique aspect of value that they care about in the negotiation. They can trade off in that to overall do better collectively than they could have done individually. Okay, so that a greater amount of value collectively is created in the negotiation. So that being said, right, what are the steps to take? What are the procedures to follow to get the most out of an integrative negotiation? Okay, so to start with, you're going to identify the interest at stake, right? And the interest at stake can be various types, right? They can be compatible in nature. That's generally common interest. That is, the parties want the same thing. They want to go in the exact same direction with this interest, all right? It could be a shared interest, which is like a common interest. They care about the same thing and they want to go in the same directions, but to differing degrees. One person cares about the interest more than the other, or one party wants a little bit something different from the interest, right? The value there is something unique to them. So they want something different, but they're generally going in the same direction. And then there's joint interest, which are you care about the same thing, but it tends to be in opposite directions, and that's what characterizes a distributive negotiation, right? The parties want differing things for a mutual interest there. In distributive negotiations, however, the interest is mutually exclusive. Sometimes the parties want to go different directions in an interest. It can still be integrative in nature if they care more about specific elements of value in that interest or in that collection of interests than others. They can trade that value off. Okay, so if you can identify these attributes of the interest, that's your starting point for proceeding through the negotiation. That's how you're going to ultimately set your objectives and strategy there. Okay, so next you'll move on to your alternatives. When you have multiple interests at stake, it's a little bit difficult, or more difficult than in a distributive negotiation, to identify what are your alternatives with regard to the interests at stake. We call your best alternative your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement, because that is collectively, if you can't come to an agreement, if anything's a hold up in this negotiation, what is your best alternative? What is the outcome that is best for you if this negotiation fails? Okay, so identify that. From there, you can use these alternatives, your understanding of the interest at stake and the alternatives, to come up with what is your reservation point. Your reservation point is the point at which you're going to walk away. Okay. Now, you might say, well, it should be the same thing as your BATNA, right? If you've got an alternative out here that is your best alternative, well, you're going to walk away if you can't achieve at least that amount of value. And that's generally the case, except for the value in the alternative may be a little bit different, right? There may be external factors in there that aren't apples to apples, oranges to oranges, right? You're comparing two different things. So oftentimes your reservation point will be something a little bit different than your BATNA. It'll be a combination of all the aspects of the interest together combined with your best alternative. Okay, so you'll establish your reservation point, and you'll establish your target point, what you're trying to achieve in the negotiation, what you believe is reasonable and a potentially viable outcome. Now, if you can establish this, you're then ready to try to assess that about the other side. And how do you do that? Through communication, right? Negotiation, in its essence, is simply a communication exercise where you're trying to exchange value and exchange information between the parties. The party with the greater amount of information usually has an advantage. They can generally do better or grab more value in the negotiation than the other party. So a negotiation is a back and forth where you're selectively disclosing value between yourselves to put yourself in a better position to grab more value in the negotiation, right? It'll also generally help to ensure that you don't allow the negotiation to fail when otherwise you're both willing to reach a point within your zone of potential agreement within those reservation points. It's just once you get within those reservation points, who grabs more value in the scenario can be very beneficial to you. Okay, so from there, once you believe you understand this about the other side, then you can go on to setting your strategy. And as we talked about in a different video, strategy is a very difficult concept to encapsulate in a few minutes. But strategy is generally made up of your orientation, that's your disposition coming in, whether it's competitive, collaborative, avoiding, yielding, that type of thing, and your objectives, the things you hope to achieve in how you, and it's more than your overall goal, it's the things you hope to achieve in affecting the context of the negotiation or affecting the other party, right? I like to tell people I may try to make the other party sad. Okay, that might be my objective. I might try to convince the other party. That might be my objective, or persuade them, right? I might try to make them mad. I might try to change, or I might try to add, some urgency, their feeling of urgency. That's my objective, right? Now, how do I do those things? I might tell a sad story. I might tell a story that angers them. I might introduce some element that adds some, that causes the other side to think that this is urgent, like something is going to go away or they're going to lose something if they don't act quickly. So those are my tactics, right? Now, if I understand all these things about the interest at stake, myself and the other party, I can now develop this strategy appropriately. So then I'm ready to open up. I'm ready to anchor in the negotiation. That's the point, my first offer to the other side. Okay? The party who anchors first is generally at an advantage as long as they have adequate information, as long as they're well informed. But if they don't have good information, they could make a big mistake by being way out in left field, being too high or too low and not grabbing enough value, right? So as long as you have good information, you set the parameters for the negotiation by where you open up. So that's called your anchor point, right? And then from there, you are going to use your tactics to achieve your objectives. In a distributive negotiation, it's going to be concessions, and in most negotiations, there's a concession, but not all. Sometimes, say for example, a party may be able to use a tactic whereby you don't concede anything. You simply convince the other party to pay what you're asking, right? Or you hold your line and the other party just comes up to meet it, right? That is a tactic to employ. So you don't always use concessions, but generally, in the integrative negotiation, you are going to use trade-offs. Okay, you're going to trade off value, and that is going to be part of the cooperative process to once again lift all boats, to expand the pie, to make to create greater value overall in the negotiation. So remember that is at the heart of the integrated negotiation: trading off, focusing on that isolated value, so that both parties can get more of what they want. All right. And then ultimately, hopefully with the interest or collective interest at stake, you arrive at a final position, right? A settlement point in the negotiation that is a negotiated agreement. And that collectively is the best process or procedures or steps to take to proceed through an integrative negotiation.